Good morning. It's me, Larry, and I'm coming to you live from Stevie's room. I'd like to talk a bit about adoption and surrender. And there seems to be one word that springs into my mind regarding all of this in animal rescue, and that is the word urgency. There are some shelters that are kill shelters, and there are others that are no kill. There's a difference. In a kill shelter, the dog or cat, and it really does apply a lot to dogs, um, gets put on an urgent list. Their time is numbered, their days are numbered, and their perfectly fine and healthy dog is euthanized. And I'd rather not sugarcoat the word. They take it in the back and they kill it. Okay, they people will claim that it's humanely euthanized. I don't know if there's ever such a thing as a polite way of killing a creature that didn't do anything wrong for no reason except to make space, or because time ran out, or because it really was terrified so badly that it couldn't handle the stress and went into decline, which is something that occurs in the no-kill shelters, where they're there for so long that that constant exposure to the kennel life is so great. And with cats, it's the biggest urgent scenario presents itself often on the street because they are free roaming. But if they make it into the shelter, there's a whole new dynamic to that. The shelter is not a place for an animal. It really, truly isn't. And I've been looking at a lot of these pages of people who are in rescue, particularly with dogs. Um, and a lot of these dogs are sweet, friendly dogs that somebody simply dropped off. That there's no other reason. The excuses, the lame excuses that people make, I'm going to give you a couple of real ones that I've spoken to people in intake. The dog doesn't match my curtains. Uh, one of the cats urinated in my living room, and I don't know which one. I want to surrender both. Um, the dog is aggressive anytime the dog is wagging its tail. I'm moving. I got evicted. My mother is allergic to the house and to the cat, and I lost my apartment and I have no money. Me, 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 me. That is something very common with the surrender, and the surrender has one thing in common. They want to give that animal up right now. Immediate. And that presents the urgency to the person to adopt. They are picking up the slack of the person who failed on their commitment. And what about, could there ever be a logical or true story? A woman was on her deathbed. She believed that her son was going to take her dog. She got wind that the dog was at the shelter and called my friend in rescue. Sure enough, he found the dog. And he called her and said, the dog will spend the rest of his life with me. It was an old dog. And she died the next day. So we're talking about family members even. The spouses. Woman goes into the hospital with a heart attack, is in the ICU, and her husband is already on his way. And by the way, it's vice versa. This is not a husband, wife, or both. Both examples on their way to the shelter to surrender the animals of the partner. So I gave the example of the man, but it's not always the man. It's oftentimes it's the woman. Many of the cats that I pick up on the street were clearly house cats. They're friendly. oftentimes pregnant, dumped in a warehouse district. Oh yeah, the scenario, they're on their way to animal services, and they figure, well, look, there's a restaurant over here and there's a warehouse over there, or they dump it at a veterinarian's office, saying, oh, the veterinarian, he cares about these animals. Like, the veterinarian is not a shelter. They call up the shelter. There was one young man who was running into clinics and dumping animals and then running out. That, by the way, is animal abandonment in Florida. Is a $5,000 fine per animal if they catch him. They got him on camera. That, I mean, people are awful. Recently, they did catch the person who dumped 5 kittens that a man saved. People don't always go and surrender their animal at the shelter, because at the shelter they have a person there that is involved with retention. They want to try and convince you, look, this is the last ditch effort. Have you tried everything? Have you done everything? But that person is tone deaf. They've already made up their mind. They're done. They're done. And if that hasn't made your blood boil, then realize how, when you are faced with the animal shelter or the person going there and volunteering and saying, this dog is on the urgent list, please, time is limited, we want to get it out of here. And sometimes I read pages where people will say, oh, please get it out. Oh, I hope it happens. The only way it's going to happen is if you get in your car and go there and make it happen. And I live by those words. Every cat in this house would have died on the outside. And I'm now at the point where I've even offered some airline miles to one of the dog rescues, because I can't take a dog in here. It's just too much. And that's another thing. Not everybody can adopt. I get it. You may live in a place. You may have a job that requires travel. Realize that before you adopt, that it is a commitment. Don't do it if you can't do it. But try and find some way of helping that you can do. And just, going on a page and saying, oh, please get that dog adopted. Oh, please, somebody step up. That's not enough. You really got to do something. If you want to be proactive, you got to get proactive with whatever you can do. Think of something, anything, even if it's. There are people that surrender a dog or a cat to another person, and they don't even hand them a can of dog food. I mean, they don't imagine that this dog is going to have to go to a veterinarian, which is another thing that happens. They oftentimes surrender dogs that might be sick, or cats that are sick. So, and you already know that dog or that cat is going to go into decline. And usually the shelter will try to treat it, but it's not a specialist clinic. They're there to try and give the animals homes. So when you walk in there with a dog that has a lump and heartworm and is 12 years old, you're really putting all the disadvantages about the next person stepping up. That doesn't mean they don't. As you know, the one cat I have here from the shelter is a 12-year-old cat. I saw the look of terror in her eyes, and you've seen my videos with Kira. I didn't need to go and adopt the cat. I did it because I got linked to that page and I saw that picture, and the worst part of it is there are more Kiras at every shelter. And same thing with dogs. The difference with the dogs and the cats is unbelievable with how they behave in the shelter. The dogs sometimes go stir crazy in the kennel. They want to bust out. They're jumping through, and the person comes in and with a new one, and it's almost like a scene in a prison movie where the new inmate has walked in. They all go crazy in their kennels because they're all stressed. With cats, It's the opposite. They're hiding. They're silent. They're terrified. The one I adopted urinated all over herself in the carrier. And they turned to me when I made it out the door. And they realized it and said, "Do you still want her?" Look, you got to get out there and do it. Something. Anything. And to those of you that surrender, there's just no excuse. If you lost your home or ran into financial woes, that didn't happen overnight. You had to see the tidal wave coming. You had to find some way. You know, and there are some ways of trying to work around it. You even had time to possibly even rehome the dog temporarily with somebody, or try to do something, or the cat, while you tried to get yourself together. Or talk to the person you're going to that's bailing you out, because that's why you ended up there. I mean, at what point? And you can say, well, you know, I got fired, well, I got sick. The excuses. Animals don't understand excuses. You made a commitment. That commitment requires dedication and follow through. And you follow through with yourself. You saved yourself. But you didn't save them. Unless you're living homeless. But you know what? There are homeless people that take their dog or their cat with them. So there are even some people that are homeless because they don't want to go to a shelter themselves because they have a dog or a cat. This is really all boils down to one word: urgent. When I think of the cats that I have, if you look at my last video, Tutti, that big cat, he was found as a baby kitten in a paper bag. Stevie was found at Publix supermarket in a pouring rain in a parking lot. You know, every single animal in this house was a story. They all came from somewhere. Bobby, oh my God, he was in shock. You know, each one came from a terrible place, and that's how they ended up here. They would not be alive. They are, in essence, the ghosts of what could have been if they had lived where they were. So, yeah, do it. Do it, and be sure you can do it if you are. And if you can't do it, well, then find something that you can do. Even if you see that lady on the street feeding the cats, offer to give her a bag of cat food. Do something. Do something. Don't just walk by. Because it is urgent. Thanks for listening. Be well.